Hey everyone, and welcome to Make It Make Sense. My name is Erika Washington. It says it right down there in the corner. And I am the executive director of Make It Work Nevada, and we power Make It Make Sense. Make It Make Sense, if this is your first time viewing, is a Facebook Live program where we get a chance to talk to folks in Las Vegas about whatever is going on. Whatever doesn't make sense, we're trying to make sense. So today, and actually for the rest of the year, we're going to be talking about midterms, right? Because the midterm elections are happening. The primaries are coming up starting next month, will be the early vote, and the actual primary vote day is in June. So there's a lot of folks running for office, a lot of folks vying for your vote. And so we're going to try to talk to as many of those people as humanly possible. Today, we're going to start with the DA's race. The DA as in the district attorney. So why do we want to talk to the district attorney? It's because they do a lot of stuff. And I'm going to have them explain exactly what that is and why it's important to us and why it's important to our community. So we're going to start bringing folks on. Now, we invited everybody. Everyone who's running for DA, we invited on this show to have the conversation and to talk to you all. Everyone did not accept the invitation. Take that as you may. So hopefully the folks who did take the invitation and have a chance to speak directly to the community, that you get some of your questions answered. And feel free to ask questions on our Facebook page in the chat, and we want to try to answer as many as possible. But we have some questions already curated directly from the community that I think will be great for us to hear. So let's get started. I want to introduce our first candidate. That would be Mr. Timothy Treffinger. He will be starting us out. Hello.
Hi, Erika. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on, Mr. Treffinger. This is the first time that we have met. Well, I mean, earlier, like 40 minutes ago, but
Right.
This is our first real encounter with each other. And so I'm super excited to meet you and learn about the reasons why you want to be in this race and all of that. But let's start first with, who are you?
Sure. My name's Tim Treffinger. I'm the Republican nominee at this point for Clark County District Attorney. I am a former prosecutor. I prosecuted in Nevada for the Attorney General's office after I got out of law school. I hold a Juris Doctorate and a legal master's from the University of New Hampshire. The master's is in international criminal law and social justice. And I'm in this race because I wanted there to be some equality, people on both sides. There hasn't been, I don't think, a Republican in the DA's race for quite some time, at least not in the past few cycles. And I do believe in equality and balance. And I wanted to get involved to try to fix some of the issues that I perceived dealing with in the DA's office. I am an active criminal defense and family law attorney, so I do interface with the DA's office quite a bit. And my goal here is just to fix some of the issues and bring more equality and transparency to the office.
Wow. Well, that's a lot. Thank you so much for being here. Next, we would like to bring on the next candidate for district attorney. That would be Mr. Ozzie Fumo.
Good evening. How are you tonight?
Hello. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for asking. Nobody ever asks how I'm doing. I appreciate it.
Well, I hope both of you are doing well, and I hope we have a good time this afternoon having this conversation. But I'm going to ask you, I'm going to start asking you the same question. Who are you? Tell the audience who you are.
So I also a criminal defense attorney. My name is Ozzie Fumo. I'm the Democratic candidate at this point for Clark County District Attorney. I have lived in Las Vegas for the last 45 years. Moved here when I was 10 years old. Grew up here. I say my formative years were here. Met my wife in high school here. Went away to college, University of San Diego. Came back. At the time I went to law school, there was no law school, so went to Whittier College School of Law in California for law school. Came back and put up my shingle. Started practicing criminal defense from there. I've been practicing criminal defense for the last 27 years. I've spent 2 terms at the Nevada State Legislature in 2017 and 2019, where I was an advocate to end the death penalty, bail reform, and a lot of social justice issues. And I also teach at the law school. I teach at Boyd Law School now, trial advocacy, opening statements and closing arguments, and pretrial criminal litigation. I enjoy doing everything, especially I enjoy teaching at the law school, working with the students. Very bright Juris Doctorate candidates that we have here, intelligent, very good writers. The school is #1 in writing. Very proud about that. But I got into this race because I saw an inequity in the office, right? There's an imbalance of people that represent this community, an imbalance of how justice is applied. And like I said, there's great attorneys in the office, great support staff in the office, great paralegals, investigators, just lousy leadership. And I'm out there to change that. And I think no matter who you pick, myself or Mr. Treffinger, in November, we're going to have an improvement in that office.
Thank you. And so, again, as I said, we did invite all candidates, and that includes the current district attorney, Mr. Wolfson, that we did not get an answer from. And so we will have to move on without his voice in this conversation. I want to ask you both a question to start with, and you sort of both kind of led into it in your opening statements, but I want to dig just a little bit deeper if we can. So why do you both went to law school, you both are criminal defense attorneys, so you have seen all sorts of things, and you've worked hard, you study hard, and all of that. And I don't know when you first decided that you wanted to be an attorney, whether or not you decide that you knew that this is where you wanted to be, that you wanted to end up being a DA, in Las Vegas. So my question is, why do you want to be a DA, and is it because of Jack McCoy? And so I'll start with Mr. Fumo.
I never saw myself becoming a prosecutor when I was in law school. I enjoy being in trial. I enjoy doing jury trials. I enjoy teaching trial advocacy. I don't think our current district attorney has done a trial in the last 35 years. I think I've done about 6 jury trials in the last 6 months. I don't think he's done 6 jury trials in the last 40 years. And so I think the office there needs leadership. It needs experience. It needs someone with a level head. It needs someone who's going to apply justice equally. We've seen way too many things where the rich and powerful are given one set of deals, and the poor or the average citizen in Clark County is given another set of negotiations or deals applied to. And I'm out about equal justice under the law. I keep saying it's about we the people, not we the privileged. I never did see myself becoming a prosecutor. I don't need this job. I want this job. My wife and I do quite well doing what we're doing. And quite frankly, it would be a pay cut to accept this job. I just think the community is being underserved by the current administration, and I'm out to change that.
Mr. Treffinger, did it have anything to do with law and order?
It may have had a little bit to do with law and order. That and seeing some of the strange things that happen on cops. I will say that I intended to go into prosecution after I got out of law school. I did that. I went to the Attorney General's office. I prosecuted sex crimes and domestic violence cases for 3 counties in the rurals, and found that I really loved being in court, the same as Mr. Fumo. I think some of us have a taste for trial work and some don't. There are many attorneys who never walk into a courtroom and prosecute a case. But if you have a passion for it, it's just something that you continue to pursue, whether that be on the defense or on the prosecution side. And again, Mr. Fumo and I have done other programs. We agree on a lot of things, oddly enough, even though we're on both sides of the aisle. One of those things is the community is being underserved. Justice is not being applied equally. And that is something that needs to change. And that's really what got me into this race.
And so you bring up my next question is the aisle. Why is this seat district attorney? Why is it a partisan seat? Why is it a Republican versus Democrat versus, whatever else, if, folks were jumping in libertarian or independent or what have you? Why would this seat that is meant to serve the entire community and prosecute in what is supposed to be blind justice and all of that, why is it considered a partisan seat? Why is that? And whomever wants to jump in first can start.
I think that's a legislative question. I think it's just always been that way. I don't know why it is a partisan seat. I think the history of it, from what I know, it's just been that way since they started having these elections in Clark County for district attorney. It's an odd thing, though, that we elect our district attorney, yet we appoint our public defender. And it just seems at odds, different way to select, because they both have a very important job, and both are out there to seek justice for the community. To answer your question, I really don't know why it's been traditionally a partisan seat, but it does happen to be that way. If you look at my opponent's donations list, he is getting his donations from all Republicans. I can't find one Democrat that's donated to him at this point. It's all casinos, business owners, and Republican Party people. One of them being Steve Wynn, the former chair of the Republican Party. He's got people like that. So he, I think, aligns himself more with the Republican Party. If you look at his donations, I align myself more with the Democratic Party. So I'm looking forward for the Democrats to come out strong for us in the primary.
And Mr. Treffinger?
I'm not sure I have much to add to that. Oddly enough, most people, when you ask about this race, think it is a nonpartisan race, just like the sheriff's race. I mean, there is some lobbying, obviously, that gets done by the DA's office with the legislature. I believe they actually have their own lobbying group, but we're here to enforce the law as it's written. We're not really here to change it. So it is a strange thing that it's a partisan race, and we just kind of take it as it comes.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that is a question maybe that we bring up to some other folks. We think about who we would bring that conversation up with, because I do think that matters. If we're, if folks lean one way or the other, then how can folks really be biased, and how can, or not be biased, and really see folks for and see issues for what they are, and not whatever implicit bias you might have based upon your political ideologies. So we are going to do a coin toss with who starts answering the questions that our community have brought to us. And so I have a coin here, and I said before it's actually a euro, so it doesn't have an actual heads or tails, but it has the Colosseum from Rome on one side and the world on the other. So we're going to call the world head and the Colosseum tails. And because Mr. Treffinger was first to log on for this broadcast, I'm going to let him pick heads or tails of who starts first. So here you go. Let me know.
Go with tails.
Heads. It's heads. So we are going to start with Mr. Fumo, and we are going to bring up our first video of conversations that our organizing team went out in the field yesterday, or sort of on the street talking to folks and asking them, do you know what a DA is? Do you know that there's a DA's race? Do you know who's running? What's important to you with the DA? And what would you ask the candidates if they were right in front of your face? So those are the questions that we asked, and this was the first question that we got.
Is how come it's not the same laws as well for the officers of this town as well as the people? They have the same laws, but the law officers always seem to get away with things. That would be the question of mine.
Okay, well, his name is Greg, and he was exercising out at over by the Doolittle Senior Center, and he took the time to stop and ask that question. So, Mr. Fumo, you get to start first.
Yeah, I guess what he's asking, there seems to be two sets of justice for police officers in the community as a whole, and I think that falls in line with why I'm running for this race, right? I see the inequities in this office. It's we the people, not we the privileged. The 10% of the community is getting treated one way, and we the people, the other 90% are getting treated another. And I think law enforcement is one of those. Clark County is one. Well, Nevada is one of two states in the United States that's never charged an officer with a murder. I mean, you think about that. Of all the videos that we've seen and other things that have happened here, we have never charged an officer with a murder in Nevada, Clark County especially. So there does seem to be two sets of justice for the people. Every other state in the union except for us, I think Alaska, has not done that. So those are the things I want to change, right? If there's legally sufficient evidence to charge an officer with a murder, we will do so. We're not in bed with them. The way I look at Metro is, you do your job, do it well, and if you provide me with information that's legally sufficient, I will prosecute the case. But we're not in bed together. You do your job, I'll do mine. If there's legally sufficient evidence, then I will prosecute the case.
Mr. Treffinger.
And you're not going to hear much of a different answer here. Whether you're a police officer or a judge or an everyday person, the laws apply to everybody equally. I think it's something that has not been applied as well as it should be with this office. Every officer involved shooting should be reviewed. Excuse me. Obviously, there's always going to be some form of quote unquote relationship between the DA and Metro. We work together to protect the community, but that doesn't mean that we're there to protect Metro when they do the wrong thing. And I think either person on your screen right now is going to go after those people that do the wrong thing. If you're a police officer in Clark County and you're violating the law, you're going to get prosecuted.
So what do you think? And I think there have been other folks who have said similar things in DA races across the country, and then sometimes they don't necessarily follow through on that line of thinking. What is that pressure of a DA with the police department that keeps folks from really holding police officers accountable for wrongdoing? It's not necessarily that anyone is saying, they hate the police or the police shouldn't be here or what have you, or police can't do their jobs. But why is it that folks are so afraid? DAs in the past have been afraid to actually hold people accountable, no matter what their job title is or what type of uniform they wear.
I'll take a stab at first. I think that it's because there's been this, what I call almost an incestuous relationship between the district attorney's office and the Metropolitan Police Department. They haven't been able to draw those lines. Like I said, you stay in your lane and I'll stay in my lane and we'll get along just fine. And I think the lines in the past between the last several administrations have been blurred, where they think we're all part of this same team and everything. You got a job to do, I got a job to do, and our two jobs are different. Metro, your job is to arrest somebody based on probable cause, right? You have a much lower standard. I got to look at it to whether I can prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. And if you do your job and do it well, I'll be able to do my job and do it well. But you're not going to influence me to stack on charges or do anything illegal. And I'm not going to ask you to do anything like that either. You do your job and I'll do my job. But that incestuous relationship is over when I come in. You do it your way and I'll do it mine. Stay in your own lane. The other thing I don't like is the current, where the district attorney's office are. This is kind of a little off topic, but it's really the same thing. The Regional Justice Center, the 9th floor is the district attorney's office, and every other floor is the judges and the judges' chambers. And so there's, that incestuous relationship where they're parking in the same parking lot together. They're riding up and down the back elevators together. They hang out together. And it's got to be, the judges are supposed to be independent, and the district attorney's office is supposed to be independent. We don't need to be doing this. So one of the things I'm going to push for when I get in there is for us to move out of that building. Let the judges have the courthouse to themselves, and the public defenders have their own place to go, and the district attorney's office should have their own. No more of this, incestuous relationship, as I call it. In federal court, you don't have that. You don't have the judges parking in the same parking lot with the United States attorneys and the public defenders being across the street. You have everybody in their own unit because it avoids that appearance of impropriety. And that's what I think we've had with Metro and the past administrations in the district attorney's office, a clear appearance of impropriety, but everybody kind of turns a blind eye to it. And we have that in the courthouse as well. Those are the things I'm going to change.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Treffinger.
And I agree, there could be more separation there for sure. I also think that a lot of the reasons you don't see DAs prosecuting police officers is they look at it as political suicide, I think, in some places. And you have to have the courage to get beyond that. The people, if they've elected you into that office, have the courage to stand up and number one, be transparent. That's been one of the biggest problems. If we're being transparent and we're releasing, evidence to the public that we can pursuant to statute, and we're standing up for what's right, I think the people would rally behind that. I think some people are too worried about their public appearance and their future political career and less worried about doing the right thing. And I can tell you right now, I've been in this town for much less time than any of my opponents, but I'm not beholden to anybody. I don't plan on becoming beholden to anybody. And the only person or the only thing that I'm standing behind is the people of this county, the Constitution, and the laws that are given to us by the legislature. And I think if everybody focuses on that, we have a lot less issues with the DA and the police appearing to be in the same bed. And it's just something that needs to change.
Thanks. So we're going to go to our next community question. This question is from Leonard.
How is it he intends to improve the relationship between our police and our man in the street? And what would he do with the prosecutors to make them more sensitive to those who have not the wherewithal to be represented?
So I think what he was asking, because we had to edit a little bit, is how can a district attorney or prosecutor be sensitive to folks who don't have uh, any sort of knowledge of the criminal justice system, don't know, how to find a good lawyer, or if they're represented by one that might poorly represent them. How, as a DA, will you take that into account when you are when you're prosecuting? Because sometimes I think folks have seen folks just feel like they've been railroaded or run over by the criminal justice system and wasn't given a fair chance. And I'm sure you all have seen attorneys who don't necessarily do their due diligence and all. Is there something that the DA's office can do to help make sure that the law is that it stays fair and equal? And we'll start with Mr. Treffinger.
And I think that it's hard to get involved too heavily on the defense side, obviously, because you do have your ethical obligation to handle what's in your office and stay in your lane. However, I think that part of the way that can be addressed is if you're charging things fairly, and I mean charging them for what the crimes are, not stacking on charges that causes people to feel like they have to take a deal or they're never getting out of custody, especially when you're stacking multiple felonies. I know for a period of time, some places were charging a felony per pill if someone had prescription medication they shouldn't have. That's the type of thing that drives up bail, and it puts pressure on defendants to make bad decisions. And I think another thing that could help this situation would be not pursuing in a criminal manner things like traffic tickets or things of that nature, where people end up stuck in the system. They can't afford an attorney. They can't afford to pay their tickets. They end up in jail for long periods of time. Some of this stuff has been handled ridiculously and pursued way too aggressively, and that's nothing but hurt the public.
Mr. Kumo?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in that question, and it goes back to great attorneys in the office, great support staff in the office, lousy leadership. It comes from the top down. First problem is the office does not look like the community. We have 26% Black people in this community, and the office has like 2% Black attorneys, Black support staff. So when you have an office that doesn't look like the community, they don't act like the community, they don't associate with the community, they can't relate to the community. So that's the first problem the office has. That's one of the things I'm going to change. The office is not involved in the community. And again, that comes from the top down. I don't blame the line deputies and the support staff. I blame Steve Wilson for not doing a good job. He's a lousy leader. When I go to events at the government center or all over Clark County, you see the county commissioners there, you see state legislatures there, you see state senators there, you see the public defender's office there. You never see the district attorney's office there, because they have this elitist feeling to them. And it's not line deputies, comes from the top down. Great attorneys, lousy leadership. They see themselves as better than you. They see themselves as more important than you. They can cut the line in front of you, and they don't want to associate with you. They don't have booths at these tables because they don't want to have outreach with the community. And that's part of the problem. I hear a lot from victims is they say that I get a phone call from the district attorney's office while my case is going on, and then if it negotiates or goes to trial, once it's over, I get nothing. I get no more support. I still need help. And when I'm talking about things is like licensed clinical social workers to get involved with people so that the victims from today don't become tomorrow's defendants, because they drop you like a hot potato. They use you for what they think they need you for. And again, not the office itself. It's from the top down. It's lousy leadership. And so those are the things that I think that need to change. And then you're going to see a better justice system. You don't want to see the defense bar or the public defender as the enemy, but rather a partner in the community and how we can make this a better, safer community for all of us. Because that's the number one job. Keep this community safe.
Yes, indeed. And that's a really good point. Over the years doing this work, I don't think I've ever seen DAs within all of the meet and greets and the various conversations that that are held, whether in North Las Vegas or Clark County Government Center, City Hall, wherever. You don't necessarily see that. And I think that is something that is important, because one of the things that folks heard on the street yesterday was that they knew who the district attorney was, but they never met him, or they had never heard any conversations with him, any live town halls or anything like that, where they could ask personable questions and get answers. We are going to go to our next question. This is from Phil.
It's a disparity across the country, the way that justice is meted out. If it's, can I afford to pay for a lawyer, or do I have to use a court-appointed attorney? Why is it that it seems that the rich get off with a slap on the hand, and the poor or minority get the vast majority of the time? They get sentenced usually to the max of what that crime offers versus an alternative sentence. So that's what I would ask him.
So I will start with you, Mr. Fumo. This question around fair sentencing, and if you got more money and you got more power, more pull, that you can get off and not have to do the time so much. How do we alleviate that?
Let me say this. When you go to Alcoholics Anonymous, the first thing they tell you, the first step to making it yourself cured or to getting better, is to admit you have a problem. And so unless we can admit there's racism and racial injustice in the criminal justice system, we're not going to make it any better. That's the first step. And the problem is we have judges and attorneys on both sides of the aisle who don't think there's a problem, and that's the problem. And that's true. What the question was from that gentleman happens in Clark County way too often. We've all heard, I think, or if you haven't, I'll tell you the story. Henry Nicholas is a billionaire who came to Las Vegas with his girlfriend, last name Fargo, from the Wells Fargo Bank. And they came here partying, and they had all kinds of drugs: heroin, meth, cocaine, laughing gas. And laughing gas you can only get from a prescription from a dentist, and you bringing it across state lines is another violation. So they're trafficking drugs. They're here in Las Vegas. They get caught with these drugs. And Ms. Washington, if you and I were in that hotel room caught with that amount of drugs, you and I would be looking at life without the possibility of parole. And what their attorney did, because they could afford a good attorney, said, well, anybody could have gotten in this room. And let me tell you something, Ms. Wash, I've been practicing for 27 years. And if I came to the district attorney's office and said, oh, anybody could have planted that while we were out gambling and partying at strip clubs, they would have said, tell it to the jury. But Mr. Wolfson didn't do that, because this guy's a big donor and a good friend, and he knows his attorney very well. So they changed the law for this man and said, we're going to prove this, so we're going to make it so that you can give a donation, stay out of trouble, and we're going to get your case dismissed. Now, coincidentally, both of these parties, Fargo and Nicholas, happen to be white. And so they get a dismissal. At the same time that was going on, I represented a black man named Mr. Jefferson. He was gotten a prior felon, got in a fight with his wife, went to a motel to get away from the problem. No police were called. He just wanted to get away. And police followed him because they thought he was doing drugs. And they broke into his hotel room. No drugs. They strip searched him. No drugs. They looked inside of his mouth with a flashlight. No drugs. They looked in every crevice of his body. No drugs. They brought a dog to sniff around his car. No drugs. They arrested him, not for drugs, but for ex-felon failure to change address. And while they're taking him to the jail, and you and I, if we'd have been charged with that, probably would have gotten a citation. But because they wanted him, they'd get him down there. And coincidentally, when he gets downtown, they say, and he's handcuffed the whole way. And they get him downtown and they say, well, I hope you don't have any drugs on you. And oh, look what they found on the floorboard, a size of an apple of meth. And they said it came out of his mouth. He must have been hiding it in his mouth. Impossible. So at the same time, this Henry Nicholas is getting this sweetheart deal, I filed a motion to be treated like a billionaire, because it's absolutely ridiculous. The system is fundamentally flawed. If you're dark-skinned and you can't afford a good attorney, you're going to prison. But if you're light-skinned and you can afford an attorney, chances are you're going to get a better deal. We fortunately were able to get Mr. Jefferson a similar negotiation to what the billionaire got, but only because I shined a spotlight on the inequities of the law in that courtroom. It happened to be the same judge at the same time my motion was being argued. That man was able to enter his plea. And so the judge saw the inequities. The judge ordered him to go back and give us a deal to be treated like a billionaire, but everybody can't afford attorneys like Fumo and Treffinger to go in there and fight for you. So they don't get the justice that they deserve. But I want to change that because as the chief prosecutor, I want to make sure that everybody is treated equally. Either we all get treated like a billionaire or we don't. But that's part of the problem and the disparity in the system right now as I see it.
Mr. Treffinger, but first let me say, I don't understand, walking around with laughing gas. I didn't think that was something you just toted around with you.
You can't get that unless you get it from a prescription from a dentist.
But even if you ever, why are you taking it home? You're not filling a cavity in your bedroom. I don't understand.
Right. But the rich and powerful get away with this, and that's one of my mottos. It's we the people, not we the privileged, and it happens in that administration over and over and over again. His campaign manager stole $42,000 from his campaign account, and then she stole more money from the district attorney's office. Not only did he not fire her, he never charged her with anything, and he went into the press and said she was the best employee I've ever had. When he said that, the entire morale of the office shrunk because attorneys that have been there for 10 years were thinking, oh my God, I've never stolen a penny. I've worked for this man. I've worked for this office, and she's the best employee he's ever had.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The entire morale in the office dipped at that point. That's why I say it. Lousy leadership, great attorneys.
Mr. Treffinger, what you got to add to that?
If you're going to hear me say pretty much a lot of the same things. No matter how much money you have, no matter what you do, you need to have the law applied to you equally. And it's gone back. I don't know if I was practicing law, honestly, back in the case that Ozzy cited, but I even can say recently I've seen some of the pro athletes in this town get treated differently. Look at the gentleman who got into the altercation at a nightclub, battery, serious bodily injury, and then was allowed to play in the Pro Bowl game before he was arrested. That type of stuff beggars belief. I mean, none of us here, if we got into a fight at a nightclub and seriously injured somebody and said, hey, just let me go to work, you can come get me at the end of the workday, it's not happening. Mm-hmm. And I think that does need to change. It makes the public not trust law enforcement, makes the public not trust the district attorney's office. And if we don't have the public trust, we really can't do our jobs effectively. So it's all about equality. Everybody has to be treated equally, no matter where they come from, what color they are, how much money they make. Everybody has to have the law applied equally.
I agree. Okay. And then we'll get to, I think, our final question from the community. Is this Bill?
Their relationship with the police department, their relationship with the judgeship, a lot of times, and with the DA and the judges and the police department, that seems to be to the people. I'm not a conspiracy buff, but that seems to be all three are working together. And when things come array, they're all there together covering for each other. So in that sense, how would you separate and be for the people instead of the system?
And I think we've alluded to the answer to this question a little bit, but I will start with you, Mr. Treffinger.
And again, no one should be covering for anybody. I can say this: I've taught at police academies in Northern Nevada when I first came to Nevada. As a deputy AG, I wrote training for police officers, and maybe that's part of it. Is we need to be involved in training them and holding them to a higher standard. And if they're not doing their job and they're not adequately investigating their cases, have the courage to send the cases back or simply deny charges. That's part of what we can do. If anything, we should be, holding the police to a high standard in this county. We rely on them to protect our tourist destinations. We rely on them to protect us in our homes. And if anything, I think we should be training them and holding them to that standard. That will alleviate some of the problem, but definitely not covering for anybody. It doesn't serve anyone. If the police aren't doing their job, we can't effectively prosecute our cases. And if we're covering for them, we're doing a disservice to the community and to justice itself.
Mr. Fumo.
Steve Wolfson is walking around like the emperor with no clothes. And I've heard that from people inside his office. I've heard that from people in the community, because he thinks he's fooling the community by being in bed with judges, and thinks he's fooling the community by being in bed with law enforcement. And when you've got the man on the street obviously aware of what's going on inside that office, you're not fooling anybody. You need to make a change. And that's why I say you can't have the judges in the district attorney's office parking in the same parking lot. You can't have them riding up and down the elevators together, all buddy-buddy, and then expect them to rule against you in court, because there's too much incestuous relationship going on. It's with the judges and it's with the police department, and that needs to change. Everybody needs to stay in their own lane. And it's not happening, and you're not fooling anybody in this community, Mr. Wolfson. You're not fooling anybody. Even the man on the street sees what you're doing.
So I think from here, we've asked all the questions on the street, and I had 2 more questions for you all, and then we'll do minute closing statements before we end. And I want to say again, I appreciate both of you for being on, and we did invite Mr. Wolfson on. I don't want anyone to tune in late and think that we're just spilling tea and having, gossip conversations about him and his work. We want everyone to be able to express their views and their commitments to our community. But I have one question I had thought about as we were having these conversations. I took a criminal law class way back. This was actually like junior high school, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I had a teacher, his name was Mr. Mitchell, and he was so dope. And he made us memorize all of these different definitions. And to this day, sometimes I can't tell you where my keys are, but I can remember this definition of a plea bargain: the process by which prosecutors and defense attorneys, with permission of the defendant, agree that the defendant will plead to a lesser charge in order to help reduce the load of cases on the court system. And so when we think about plea bargains and reducing the load of cases on the court system, because sometimes they are overrun and all of that, a lot of folks sometimes also think plea bargains are given to make it some easy wins for prosecutors, and not necessarily giving folks their day in court or their jury that they need, and they feel pressured, whether it's by police or prosecutors, to take these plea bargains instead of being able to be represented and go through a full trial or what have you. What is your opinion on that, and do you think that plea bargains are used correctly? And I'll start with Mr. Treffinger.
Depends on the case. And that's part of the problem, is there's no consistency. I can tell you that plea bargains could definitely be used more effectively, part of which would be using them more for diversion programs. We have a tremendous amount of mental health issues in our community that are not being adequately addressed. And a lot of these people are seeing plea bargains where they are signing up for prison time, where there's no real programming since COVID and no real way to rehabilitate or help them. We have some great programs like the drug court, like the mental health court, programs that allow people to, even the diversion program, and I'm a product of the diversion program. I was arrested, I went through it, my case was dismissed and sealed because I followed all the rules, didn't get any special treatment. People find themselves in bad situations sometimes late in their life, and then feel like they're going to take a felony, go to prison, and their life is over. We could certainly change the way we use plea bargains to better our community and get people the help they need with their mental health issues, with their addictions, with their gambling issues, especially here in Las Vegas. And I think so. The answer is, the plea bargains are great where they're being used effectively, but I don't think they are in the large majority of cases, and I think that needs to change.
Mr. Fumo.
Yeah, I think the system would grind to a halt if there wasn't for plea bargains. And I tell my students, I tell young attorneys, a good plea bargain is where both sides think they got the short end of the stick, and they, both sides don't feel good about it. Yeah, that's a good plea bargain, where both sides think they gave up too much. But you have to have the plea bargaining going on, because we just don't have enough trial courts to move the cases along. So it is an efficient way, if both sides agree, to resolve a case. But like Mr. Treffinger said, we're not using them, plea bargains, adequately when we're not getting people into the programs that we need. And part of the problem is this current administration. The district attorney's office is the gatekeeper to people getting into mental health court, drug court, veterans court, and gamblers court. So I may have a veteran who's a perfect candidate for veterans court, but if the district attorney doesn't open the gate to let them into the program, I can't force the judge to let them in. And that's part of the problem. What they're doing is they're touting these great successes on these programs, but the people who need them the most are not getting into them. They have a policy in the office: if you have any violence in your case, you're not getting into Veterans Court. Well, these veterans come back from war after serving our country and they have PTSD. Most likely they're going to commit a violent crime. It's going to be a battery. You can't just let everybody into these programs who committed a jaywalk. And that's part of the problem. The district attorney's office, from the leadership, lousy leadership, great attorneys. I have attorneys tell me all the time, I'd love to let them in the program. I can't do it. We need to change that. And then you'll have more effective programs, and people will become better members of society. The other problem is, when I first started 27 years ago, you've completed drug court. It was a 3-year program. You successfully completed it. Your case was dismissed. Now the current district attorney administration uses it as a condition of probation, and you have a felony conviction on your record most of the time. Mr. Treffinger, fortunately, wasn't even in Clark County, was in different county, and thank God he had somebody, a district attorney that would allow him to do that, because we have a good candidate now running for office with a sealed record. But other people in Clark County wouldn't get the same benefit of that bargain because the current district attorney wouldn't allow them into the program. That's got to change.
And so my final question is wrongful convictions. Sometimes DAs, prosecutors get it wrong. Sometimes that is due to police misconduct. Sometimes that's due to prosecutorial misconduct or a judge, whomever. It could, the accountability. We've talked a lot about police accountability, but spending some time talking about accountability within the DA's office and what that looks like. My question to both of you is, will you be able to admit if you're wrong? If something happens and someone comes through the court system and they are convicted, but it turns out that this was not a good conviction, that these things, it did not happen. There are a lot of times where, as one of our questions, people cover up and they back each other, and that pushes folks into a prison system and keeps them there sometimes for decades of their life. And folks just don't want to admit that they're wrong. Will you be able to admit that you're wrong? And would you actively try to overturn cases that, even if you were the prosecutor, if you find out the information that this could have been a wrongful conviction? And I'll start with you, Mr. Fumo, and end with you, Mr. Treffinger.
So absolutely, yes. You could ask my wife. I admit I'm wrong all the time. You have to, and we have to have a conviction integrity unit that's not made up of somebody within the office, but a team of people that can actually go back and say, we got this wrong, and correct that mistake. I just did a jury trial in February, double homicide, where a young man, black male, the state tried to kill him. They took him to the death review committee. Fortunately, they decided not to file death, but they wanted to. And we, after a 2-week jury trial, found out that the police didn't interview several witnesses who actually saw the shooting, who saw my client not do it. And after a 2-week jury trial, probably the first time I've heard of a double homicide in Clark County in the last 15 years, a jury came back and found that young man not guilty. They get it wrong. The police do investigate cases wrong. They get tunnel vision sometimes. They hear the one story and they go with it, and instead of investigating the whole thing. And we were able to show that jury effectively they got it wrong. But had the jurors saw that the other way, that young man who did not shoot and kill anybody would be doing life without the possibility of parole probably right now. That's unfortunate, and it happens all the time. We get it wrong in the death penalty. 1 out of every 8.83 cases of people that are tried for the death penalty are overturned through DNA evidence. You wouldn't put your kid on a bus if 1 out of every 9 times it was going to crash. You wouldn't take an aspirin if 1 out of every 9 times you could die from taking that aspirin. They do get it wrong. We got to make those mistakes. When we make those mistakes, correct those, and we will do that under my administration.
Mr. Treffinger.
And absolutely a big part of this job is having the courage to admit that you're wrong. I mean, it's one of the basic things that I don't know any attorney who enjoys it, but I mean, I think we've all walked into court and said, hey, I screwed this up, or, things happen, but you have to own that. And I think there's 2 ways to fix the problem with wrongful convictions. Number one, when you're having screening deputies, they need to have the courage to send a case back to law enforcement for reinvestigation. They have the ability to do it. And if the police don't want to reinvestigate the case and it looks like tunnel vision, deny the case. You don't think you can meet your burden, deny the case. If the case makes it through and there's misconduct that's found out about later, have the courage to come back, admit that the office was wrong. It will increase the public trust, and it will show people that we're actually caring about them as opposed to just prosecuting them for numbers. Numbers are great. Transparency is better. I'd rather the public know what's going on, know what mistakes were being made, and holding everybody accountable, including myself or Mr. Fumo, whoever ends up winning this election. We want to be held accountable. I don't want to put myself above anybody else. And if I'm wrong, I'm going to admit I'm wrong.
Thank you. I really could ask a bunch more questions. And the things that you're saying make me think about other things that I'd love to talk about. But we wanted to keep this as brief as possible so that people will tune in and hopefully stay for the entire conversation. So we're going to end with, I'm going to give each of you 1 minute for your closing statement, and whatever it is that you want to highlight that maybe you missed, or a question that you thought I should have asked, go ahead. And I'm going to start with Mr. Fumo.
Again, my name is Ozzie Fumo, and I'm running to be the Democratic candidate for Clark County District Attorney. And it's a Democratic primary. You need to be a registered Democrat to vote in this race if you want to vote for me. Like I said, I don't need this job. I want this job. But for the last 10 years, we've all been swindled by Steve. And if you don't want to be swindled by Steve anymore, then you got to vote for Mr. Fumo. I'd encourage you to Google me and Google him. Look at our positions. That man has not done a jury trial in the last 35 years, and he's been in that office for the last 10. I've done more jury trials in the last 6 months than I think he's ever done in his entire career. I've dedicated my life to criminal justice reform. And I'm willing to work hard for the citizens of Clark County. I'm willing to work hard for the victims of Clark County. And if you're ready for change, I'm ready to get to work. My name is Ozzie Fumo, and you can Google me. You can look me up at OzzieForDA.com. Thank you for your privilege of your time. I appreciate you.
Mr. Treffinger.
And Erika, again, thank you for inviting me on this program. Again, my name's Tim Treffinger. I effectively, since I don't have a primary opponent, am the Republican nominee for district attorney, and I'll be going to the general election in November. Mr. Fumo was right. We need change somewhere. Somebody has to change the inequalities and inadequacies that are going on in the DA's office. And it's been made pretty clear that those changes aren't going to be made. The current administration has had 10 years to do it. It hasn't happened. If you want somebody who's willing to be held accountable, if you want someone who has conservative values, and you want to see real change come in at the DA's office level in this county, I'd ask for your vote in the general election. As always, Mr. Fumo, it's been a pleasure discussing these issues with you, and I look forward to seeing you in the general with me. If you want to support me, or if you have any questions, please reach out to me. Treffinger for Nevada. That's TREFF as in Frank, INGER, the number 4, Nevada.com. Any questions that come through there, I do answer myself. I'm looking into that's the word I'm looking for. Interact with the community and answer any questions. I haven't been around as long as some of these other guys. You're going to Google me. There's going to be far less that comes up. Some of it may be entertaining, but not really, pursuant to the campaign. But I love interacting with the community. Please reach out to me. I'm happy to answer your questions.
Well, thank you again. I thank you both for coming on Make It Make Sense, powered by Make It Work Nevada. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that works to amplify the needs and the issues of the Black community in Las Vegas. But when we amplify those needs, it's a ripple effect that there are needs for all of the community. And so I wish you both luck, and hopefully we do see you out in the community and talking to the folks. And I am Erika Washington, and this is Make It Make Sense. And we'll be back in 2 weeks to talk to some more candidates and a different race. And so hopefully you all will tune in. This event was live, but it will also live on our Facebook page, the Make It Work Nevada Facebook page. Please feel free to share it with your friends and your family, and let people know what's going on. Let them hear from the candidates' mouths what they're about and how they will serve our community. I'd like to thank you so much again for being here, and I look forward to seeing you all in 2 weeks. Thanks so much, Mr. Fumo. Thank you so much, Mr. Treffinger.
Thank you for the privilege of your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
I have a question to ask them.
Me?
Yeah.
No, just be fair. Be fair and partial. You know what I'm saying? Because we've been get hit on top of the head for a lot of years for some minor things that we do. And I'm a strong believer that whatever we do, race, our color, plays a part in it. You know what I'm saying? So if you could be judgmental and not look at the color and look at the crime and look at the situation and investigate more of what's going on instead of just, just judging because I'm a black man, you know what I'm saying? So that would be it.